Good morning. It is August 28th, and I am doing something that I have done before, which is I belong to a Goodreads group where you can put 5 books that you want to read, and then the next person in line chooses a book for you to read and from those 5 books, and then puts their own 5 books. So the books I put this time were Fire by Michael Teitelbaum, which is it's like an Avatar of the Last Airbender series where every time they go over one nation and they add, they tell you a little bit about the nation. Then I put The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke, which was not chosen for me already. I'm spoiling it, but I did end up reading. I put Bindlepunk Bruja by Desideria Mesa, A Universe of Wishes, edited by Donielle Clayton, and finally, Facing Frederick, The Life of Frederick Douglass, A Monumental American Man by Tanya Bolden. And the one that was chosen for me was A Universe of Wishes, which is edited by Donielle Clayton. And actually, it really fits for right now because it is nearly September, but not quite, so I can't start reading for the Magical Readathon. So it's the goodness of Book of Short Stories, so when the Magical Readathon does start, I can just read one story a day, And I also like it because I really wanted to do the thing where I read a book of short stories and then I say while I'm reading every time what I think of each short story, and I just haven't been able to do it. I did try once, but I ended up DNFing that book of that collection, which is very unusual for me. Oh, I did do it once. That anthology, I did it once with a collection, but I also wanted to do it with an anthology, and I ended up DNFing that anthology, which is obviously very unusual because generally you wouldn't DNF an anthology of short stories because there can always be something better. So currently, in A Universe of Wishes, so what is this anthology about? It is supposed to be speculative fiction, YA speculative fiction, and every story should be diverse in some way. So I've currently read 2 stories, and I'm at the 3rd story. How many stories are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There are 15 stories in here. So, yeah, I'm nearly a fifth of the way through. Anyways, so let me tell you about the 2 stories I read. So the first one is the book is named after. That is A Universe of Wishes by Tara Sim. This is an author I've never heard of before, and I will honestly not be looking up in the future. Now, both of the short stories I've read so far, on the one hand, they had things I enjoyed, on the other hand, they were incredibly flawed. So this one, first of all, the writing was terrible. I almost DNF'd it. Okay, I almost DNF'd the first short story in an anthology, which is I feel like the closer I am to the beginning, the worse I would feel about DNFing a short story in an anthology. I know it doesn't really make sense. There isn't really a difference between DNFing in the beginning or the end, but that's the way. But yes, the writing is terrible. First of all, there's this really odd mix of purple prose and straight to the point writing. She'll write a perfectly straight to the point sentence and then follow it by incredibly purple prose. And by purple prose, I'm being how I explain it, she'll write a straightforward sentence, then she'll repeat that same sentence in purple prose, and then she'll repeat the same sentence again in a 3rd purple prose, or she'll just turn the words around. She'll have, let's say, this did not actually happen in the story, but she'll have, let's say, he pointed the knife at me. The knife in his hand, the silver knife in his hand, the crystal knife in his hand, pointed at me, the knife in his hand. I'm barely exaggerating. So the writing was terrible. And the world building was also terrible. I realize this is a short story, but I don't have a problem with there not being a lot of world building. That's actually one of the things I like about short stories because I am very much not a fan of hard fantasy systems. So I actually enjoy world building in short stories a lot because they have to go with the flow. They can't explain to you every little thing about the world building. But in this story, it just didn't work for me because there were so many contradictory things. Like, she would put this one line of world building, and then a few pages later, there would be something else that would directly contradict what she had already done. However, there is a thing in the story that was good, and I think it's a major thing for short stories, and that is the romance wasn't bad. Like, did I enjoy reading it? No. But that's because I don't enjoy reading romance, you know? But the fact that this was a short story, like, around 30 pages, and she was able to convince me in that time of the romance, at least, was great. And I think she did that in a few ways. One, despite this being a short story, she did have the time for our two characters to meet each other, and we can see their relationship kind of developing. And the other thing is that she didn't make the mistake of saying, and now they're in love forever. It was just more like the beginning of their love, you know? So she actually did that well, and I think that romance is, like, it's already hard enough. Like, people do so many times they do insta-love stuff because they want two characters to fall in love, and they're like, well, they fell in love, and, like, but you didn't show us how. And it's even harder in short stories where you have so limited space, and she managed to do it. So I think that is great and good for her. I will still not be trying to read anything else by her. I'll probably actively walk away from it because I hated the writing so much. But I think that's pretty amazing. Okay, let's pause this. Okay, then the next story I read was The Silk Blade by Natalie C. Parker, another author I've never heard of before. And remember how I talked about how Tara Sim actually did the romance well? Well, Natalie C. Parker did not do the romance well. And that was the problem with this story, because this story was essentially built on the romance, and it failed because the romance didn't work. Like, I really enjoyed the writing. Natalie C. Parker definitely knows how to write. The writing was for me. And I was almost able to convince myself that I was okay with the romance in the beginning, because it just was like, well, it's lust. It's not love. It's lust. It makes sense. And then the story turned out to be, like, based on the romance, and it was so insta-love in a way beyond insta-love. Like, somehow they meet once for the first time, and suddenly they're able to read each other's minds, like, not literally read each other's minds, but read each other's expressions and body language to the point where it's basically reading each other's minds. You know, the way you do with someone you know your whole life, or for a very, very long time, someone you know extremely well, not someone you met once. And that's where the story just fell apart for me. That I'm supposed to believe not only in this insta-love, but this insta-love that somehow makes them as if they know each other very, very well after having met exactly once, half an hour ago. So, but I did think the writing was really good. So, yeah, I'm not going to be an author I would seek out, but she wouldn't be an author I would run away from. And then I have the third story, which I am currently reading. I'm not going to say too much about it. I'm just going to say it's by Libba Bray, and I believe it's part of the Diviners series, which I really hope, which is on my TBR, so I really hope it doesn't give me any spoilers. But that's all I have to say about that. So, and I probably will not update you for a while because I'm supposed to be going on a little trip. Okay, I can barely see in the sun. Hello, it is now September 1st, as I promised. It's been a while, and I think the last time I was updated you, I was in the middle of Libba Bray's story, The Scarlet Woman, which is part of her Gemma Doyle series, and I believe it did spoil something for me. Like, it spoiled one thing that I know that if I ever read the Gemma Doyle series, that a character named will die. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Libba Bray's writing, but it very much felt like the first chapter in a book. It did not feel like a short story. Like, it very much was leading to somewhere. It just was not a short story. It was well written, but it wasn't a short story. Then I read Crystal y Ceniza by Anna Marie McLemore. And this one, it was fine. I enjoyed it for the most part. I did not like the ending, but I felt it was the ending was too, like, just too perfect, you know? Like, But however, that it's because the ending was based on like the whole queer community and family, and obviously as a Jew who realized I was queer right around the same time that the Dyke March in Chicago was banning any form of Jewish identity in it, I've obviously never felt accepted by the queer community. So obviously it just like, and it just failed for me. It did not work. Then I read Liberia by Kwame Mbalia. That one is complicated for me because on one hand I was missing stuff that were cultural, like, and that's not the fault of the story. On the other hand, I was also, oh my gosh, what is this hair doing? I was also missing stuff because the story just didn't explain it well. Like, it went from, like, they were bringing food to someone, but they were also the first people in space. It was very unclear what was happening, what was the background to the story, and what they were trying to do in the story. So I think it was not well written at all. And the next story I have coming up is A Royal Affair by V.E. Schwab, and it's set in her Shades of Magic trilogy. And I really did not like the first book in the Shades of Magic trilogy, so I've been avoiding reading it, which is why I've read so little. But that is my update for right now. Hello, it is September 2nd, and I did read 3 stories yesterday. However, it's probably going to be less and less. I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories left. We'll see how much when I finish this. But anyways, I did read the V.E. Schwab story, Royal Affair. So, word of warning, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the story itself does some major spoilers for the Shades of Magic trilogy, which is kind of crazy to put it in a random anthology, but okay. And I actually ended up unexpectedly enjoying this. So, my major problems with the V.E. Schwab book I read, which was the first book in the Shades of Magic trilogy, or series, maybe it's not a trilogy, it's a whole series, I don't remember a lot of it, was that the world building was incredibly weak. Like, this whole idea is the whole book was based on the idea of there's going to be these 3 Londons, and the 3 Londons are just nothing, they're not interesting at all, and that the characters were very much stereotypes of each other. Now, in the story, no, first of all, she did both of these stuff better in the story, but also the world building didn't matter as much because it's a short story, very limited space, so there isn't as much world building. However, what she did do well. I didn't remember really anything of the magic system at all from Shades of Magic, and she did manage to put all the magic system in the story, whatever we needed to know, and make it clear what was happening. So that's good. I mean, in the book, I do think she did okay with the magic system. But yeah. And then as for the characters, they were better developed. Well, at least our main character was. The other characters were, but it's okay. It's a short story. We only really need our main character, and he was much better developed than the characters were in the Shades of Magic trilogy. And this is really showing to me that V.E. Schwab, at least from what I've read from her so far, which is just 2 things, but so this is showing to me that I think she's much better actually as a short story writer rather than a full-length writer. But who knows? Apparently, the Addie LaRue book was good. Not my thing, even if I would only have read it if I really, really liked her. And I ended up not liking her at all, so anyways, but yeah. Then I read The Take Back Tango by Rebecca Roanhorse. And Rebecca Roanhorse and I do not get along. Like, I don't know. There's always something for me within her stuff, and this was one of them. So basically, this follows our main character, who's a thief, and she steals back her culture's holy objects from an empire. However, and that sounds really cool and all. However, there was like a major flaw in the story, and that is that she tells us quite early on that her birth family was murdered when she was a baby, and she was sold to pirates who brought her up as their own daughter. And she was young enough that she couldn't remember her own name, right? She couldn't say her name. So, and she obviously has a very strong connection and knowledge of her culture in this story, and we are never told how that happens. Like, and I could think of many, many ways to have that be in the story, from something that could just be one sentence to a whole page, you know? But either way, it would be just another little short thing just to tell us how she knows this much about her culture and make the story make sense, because without it, it doesn't make sense, and that is incredibly frustrating to me. And then the last story I read was another alliterative title, which is Dream and Dare by Nick Stone. And this is very unfortunate because I love this story. I thought the plot itself was great. However, the writing itself was super clunky. Like, not even as in a writing style, as in there were just sentences that were totally grammatically incorrect. Not a lot of them. And I know Nick Stone is like very well renowned as a middle grade writer. So I'm wondering if maybe this didn't go through an editor, and his other books do go through editors. Like, he had to get it out quickly. It's a short story. Maybe he was on a deadline. Maybe he was late. Whatever. It didn't. I'm wondering if this didn't go through an editor, but short story anthologies generally do have editors, right? So I don't know. Yeah, and I'm finding this unfortunate because obviously in a short story collection, you don't really expect to like find like, oh my God, I want to read this next short story, but I want to read everything. Like, you don't expect to find like, oh my God, like something amazing. And there are always going to be flaws in everything, you know? But I'm just not finding anything like that I'm even curious to read anything else the author wrote. And I'm actively with Nick Stone, and who was the one who wrote the first story? Tara Sim. I'm like actively finding authors and I'm like, I don't want to read any more of them because their writing was bad. In general, in short story anthologies, I might like want to see an author that I want to read more of, and that's kind of what I'm looking for in a short story collection. I feel like to find an author that I'm like, oh, this was really good, I want to read more of it. But I'm okay with that not happening, but like to have that not happen and then have authors that I actively don't want to read from, because in general in a short story collection or anthology, you're not going to find that because short stories aren't the same as full-length novels. So okay, time jump and place jump. But what I was saying is that, wow, let's close the window. That sound is so annoying. Short stories have a different structure than novel length or even novella length stuff. So an author who did a bad job in the world building or characterization or romance in a short story might do an awesome job of it in a novel or vice versa. So there's nothing really except bad writing in a short story that would make you be like, that would make me be like, oh my God, I never want to read from this author again, because bad writing is the only thing that could continue. Hi, so I just wanted to say yesterday I read Wish by Jenny Balch, and this is like the first one that I really, really liked. It did feel like there was something missing, like it could have been fleshed out a little more, but it was definitely the first one where I went and looked up the author. I don't know, there was something that felt very real about it. Even though I did feel at the same time that it could have been fleshed out more, there was something about it that felt very real. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not saying the other stories didn't feel real, but this one, there was just something about it that I really liked. And so this is the first one I went and looked up the author, and this is the only story she wrote. She did win an award for it, which I think is a little exaggerated of the quality, but this is the only story she ever wrote. That's crazy. Probably she wrote other stories, but this is the only one ever published. Hi, it's the end of the day on September 4th. It's like 8:15, and I've read 2 more stories, one yesterday and one today, from A Universe of Wishes. So the first one was by the editor of this book. It was Wish by Danielle Clayton, and I didn't really expect it to be well written because for some reason I always expect the editor stories to not be good, even though a lot of the time they really actually are. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Like, what do I mean by I enjoyed it? It wasn't my thing, but objectively it was well written. Like, I could tell that it was well written even though the story so I didn't enjoy it, but I objectively could tell it was well written, and I had no problem reading it because of that, because I knew it was short. Like, if it was a long thing, I wouldn't have read it. Then I read Unmore by Mark Oshiro. Mark Oshiro I have heard of before, but I've never been interested in any of his books. But about this story in particular, well, I felt a little unmoored. Uh, so I and I'm not sure if it's definitely a story I think I'm going to have to think on, because I there are some things that I think are a story problem. Like, okay, so there's one thing that I think is a story problem, which is I didn't really get one of the characters' motivation, and I do think that if I think on the ending, I'll begin to get it more. I'm looking down on my sleeve, and my chin is like going underneath the thing, so I'm going to move back a little. So I do think if I think on the ending, I'm going to get a little more, but I don't. Even though I'm a fan of short stories, I don't like it when one thing at the end changes changes the whole perspective on the short story. I know it's a thing a lot of people like. It's just not my thing. I specifically dislike it. So yeah. And then the other thing that I also have to think on is, like, what was going on? Like, again, it was something at the end. And so I was enjoying the story until the end, and then those two things happened, which changed the way the story was seen, and because of the fact that I dislike things at the very end of a story, at the very end of a short story. I love them in longer books, like, okay? But longer books, they have like a few chapters to get to the end. So like, if something changes your perspective, you can still like get a really satisfying summary, Like, you can really, and I feel like in short stories, when just like one thing changes your perspective, a short story doesn't have a long ending. Short stories have super, super short endings. They're like, because of the length of a short story, the main part of the story is always the middle, right? So and then the second longest part is the beginning, because you have the middle where the actual stuff happens, the main stuff happens, and you have the beginning to set up and tell us what's happening in this world, and then the ending is to bring everything together. Now, in a short story, the endings are much shorter, and a lot of them are actually stuck in the middle, and then you get just the last bit of the ending, and that is fine. But when you have this thing, for me specifically, I know a lot of people like it, but for me, when you have this thing that it comes and it changes your perspective at the very end of a short story, I don't like it. It's like, I don't feel like I have a proper ending. So that's what happened in this story. So I'm just not gonna like it, and it's not even Mark Oshiro's fault. I think his writing was fine, and I was enjoying it up until that point, and more so than that, actually, I totally did not expect to be enjoying the story when I opened it, because it was all about like breakups, and that's not the kind of story I like. I think I haven't read enough stories about breakups, but maybe it is something I like, because I don't like romance, but breakup is something different, But whatever. You get the point. I didn't expect to be enjoying it, and I was. It's just that the ending ruined it for me, which is super frustrating, especially when I know that that the ending wouldn't have ruined it for everyone. It's specifically me who got ruined for. And that is an extremely frustrating feeling of knowing that this is not only an objectively good story, not only a story that I was enjoying, but that the ending is still perfectly fine, but destroys the enjoyment for me specifically. And that is an annoying feeling, and it's not anyone's fault, right? I can't say it was bad writing. I can't say there should have been a better editor. And I can't say I should change my perspective, because that's just what I like. What, I should change my perspective? I should change my perspective on the fact that I don't like coconut? I don't like coconut. It's not gonna, like, I've tried it a lot of ways. I don't like it. I've had these short story endings happen to me. I don't like them, and that's just a thing that exists. And it's still incredibly frustrating to me. I feel like in this vlog you see a lot of my frustration. I'm a person who gets frustrated incredibly easily. And I feel like you could tell that especially in this story. So I'm going to turn this off so I can stop thinking about how much this story frustrates me. Hey, it's October 10th and October. Shoot. It's September 10th. And I am back. I read the next story in A Universe of Wishes. You may have noticed it took a little while, and that was because I hated that story. So it took me ages to read it. It was The Coldest Place in the Universe by Samira Ahmed. And the thing was, she didn't want to tell a story. She wanted to give a moral. Okay? And so the story was just not good because there was no story. And further beyond that, the science did not make sense at all. And listen, I don't mind soft science and science fiction. But she tried to put in stuff, and it didn't, basic stuff didn't make sense. Like, it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, they can go through a wormhole in the multiverse. Another thing to say, the Einstein blah 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 theory means that they can pull them through a wormhole in the multiverse. But it's a third thing to mess up very basic science about, let's say, I'm not going to say what it was in that story because it'd actually be spoilers, I think. I don't know, it was not a good story, so I can't even tell you what was spoilers or not because because I can't tell what was important because it wasn't a story, it was a moral. It wasn't even, you know what's, though, I don't like stories that are moralistic, but at least Aesop's fables are interesting. Yeah, I'm here to see the tortoise and the hare race. Yeah, I want to know if the fox will manage to trick the crow into dropping his piece of cheese. You know? This wasn't interesting. Okay? So, but does it matter to her that the science didn't make sense? No, because it doesn't matter to the story. Why? Because there is no story. Okay. This was definitely the one I least liked. Gosh, I don't know what to say. I DNF'd this book. I should have DNF'd it earlier. That's all I can say. So there were two stories left for me after the stupid moralistic one, and the first one was Longer Than the Threads of Time by Zoraida Cordova, which I honestly saw and thought about DNFing this particular story, and I really should have. This one was just instant everything. Instant love, instant plot twist, no build-up at all, was not good. And then the next one, which is the one I really DNF'd, it was Habibi by Tochi Onyebuchi. It just is anti-Israel propaganda in a lot of subtle, insidious ways, saying that they going to, when was this book published anyways? Go to beginning. 2020. Anyways, saying so one of the characters is in solitary in prison, and the other one is in Gaza. Sorry, forgot the English. And so he's saying that they go to protest at the gate, at the fence, and that families go together and they bring instruments, and that's not wrong. But she left at the part where people were throwing stones and stuff over the wall, over the fence, and then she tried to break through the fence with knives. And then there's then he continues, and then the soldiers shouted us in Hebrew through the loudspeakers before they did through tear gas, and they shout in Arabic. There's a whole it's with an Arabic, okay? And but yeah, in general, it was, I didn't read all of it, but yeah. And then there's the other character who, he's in solitary, and he never takes blame for what he did. Yeah, you grew up in an area where you're gangbanging and you don't like it, but I didn't read enough to know if he killed someone or just injured someone, but yeah, it's not only your fault, but there's a reason that you're in jail. And I'm against solitary, but like, I don't know. Yeah. Just, I don't know. Okay, so I skimmed more of the story, and yeah, it's bad. So apparently this Gazan character is in an Israeli jail, which obviously is terrible, and there are rats all over the place, and there's no temper regulation, because that's definitely what Israeli jail look like inside. It's not like they give them TVs in their own rooms. These terrorists. Um, Not all Gazans are terrorists, but the Gazans in the jails are terrorists, and they had, before October 7th, they had a TV in each room. That's absurd. But aside from my anger on that, which I'm not like angry about it all the time. It's like, but like, if I think about it, and it makes me angry because I don't believe in the death penalty, but they shouldn't, and I don't believe in torturing people, but they shouldn't get anything but the basics, you know? And anyways, and then he's like, and then he goes on hunger strike, and he's like, oh my god, they're going to force feed me, which is, yeah, I know, it's the usual Gaussian propaganda of force feeding. It's being so terrible. I'd rather kill myself. And he's like, suicide is terrible, but I'm dying because of my hunger strike. I think suicide is a sin, and I would never do that to the family. Anyways, I'm dying because of my hunger strike, and this is great. It's the usual Gothic propaganda, and I should have realized, because the other book anthology I DNF'd for being anti-Semitic, for having an incredibly anti-Semitic story in it, actually, was edited by Zoraida Cordova, who has a story in here. And this one, while it's not anti-Semitic, is incredibly anti-Israel, and usually anti-Israel people, well, it's not incredibly anti-Israel, it's a normal level of anti-Israel, but usually anti-Israel people are anti-Semitic as well. So, yeah. Anyways, this was horrible way to end this book, and I am really mad that I even took it off the library.